Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where we talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it's a huge episode, maybe one of the biggest episodes this year, episode 87, where we are talking one battle after another, the newest Paul Thomas Anderson film that everyone is going crazy for. I have a million thoughts. I am so excited to talk about this. This was my very first IMAX experience in Toronto, and I'm so excited to tell you guys all about it. We're going to have lots of good stuff to talk about. But before we talk one battle after another, how we all doing, everybody? I hope you guys are all good. It has been a great week. I actually had the week off, so I was enjoying myself. But during my week off, I also shot and edited, and I have a YouTube video ready to be published on Tuesday, September 30th, I want to say, where we are going through my physical media and comics collection. It's a fun one. I literally show you every single movie I own and every book I own, or every comic book I own, rather. I didn't show my novels, but it's a really fun one. Go check that out on the YouTube channel. They'll find that linked below if you're not already on the YouTube channel here. Also for today, timestamps below. I am going to be very careful and non-spoilers to give away anything that, is not shown in the trailer. I don't really know like what's public information and what's not. So the spoiler section might be a little bit hefty, and the non-spoiler section will still have tons of stuff that we're going to talk about thematically and technically within one battle after another. But I'm very excited for today. So I think, let's just jump into the news, and then we'll have non-spoiler spoilers, and of course what else I watched after. But let's start with the news. All right, well, it was a bit of a crazy week. I mean, since we last spoke, all of the Jimmy Kimmel controversy went down, where he was taken off of the air because of his Charlie Kirk comments. And yeah, okay, I mean, some people don't want to get political, whatever. I do, because I think this is just straight up censorship. So Nexstar Media, one of the largest U.S. television station owners, said it will pull ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live after his remark about the killing of conservative quote-unquote activist. I added the quotes. So Nexstar said, Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located. So this was huge. Like, as soon as it was announced that he is suspended, basically, I can't remember the last time we had such a public, support thing on both sides of the aisle. I mean, I'm Canadian, but literally everyone I follow was posting about it, and this was last week. It was a huge deal. People saying this is straight up government censorship, and why are they getting involved with the FCC and local TV stations? And it was just a very scary thing, to be honest. Like, I'm not sure people realized the gravity of the situation, that the president, has friends and people that he knows that he's basically telling them to silence these people, and that, Kimmel is being silenced by the government. It's really weird. It was super dystopian, but happily, tons of people were coming out and supporting him, like Damon Lindelof, who did Lanterns, I believe, and also did Legion, as well as Lost, writer-producer. He said he wouldn't work with Disney unless Kimmel is reinstated. There were a bunch of people that were publicly posting they had canceled their Disney Plus accounts, and Disney Plus, like Disney stock, took a huge dive during the week, and it's probably back up now because it's Disney. But luckily, Jimmy Kimmel returned on Tuesday, and even there were people like the ex-Disney CEO Michael Eisner calling out Disney, saying, where has all the leadership gone? Who's going to step up for the First Amendment? The suspending indefinitely of Jimmy Kimmel is immediately after the FCC chairman's aggressive yellow-hot threatening of the Disney company is yet another example of out-of-control intimidation. Maybe the Constitution should have said, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press except in one's political or financial self-interest. And then Disney announced that, of course, he would come back on the Tuesday, saying, last Wednesday we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflammation of a tense situation and emotional moment for our country. So they saw it as an opportunity to tone down the rhetoric, quote unquote. But I mean, Trump had tweeted about hating Jimmy Kimmel 1,000 times and said that he was happy Colbert was fired. Of course, Colbert, Jon Stewart, even Jimmy Fallon actually made real comments about it, even though they weren't, super daring. But like, Stewart and Colbert, of course, went in on, and it was very interesting to see the public reception from other late night hosts, which is a medium that already feels like like it's really in trouble and it's dying. But I mean, I never thought there would be a day where I'm standing up for Jimmy Kimmel, a late night host that I really don't care for. Like, I don't know, he's fine, but I don't find him funny at all. And I find his show, whatever. I mean, I like Colbert a lot more. Conan's the best that has ever done it, in my opinion. I mean, it was nice to see the public rallying around this situation on both sides of the aisle. And I mean, even very, very public stars, like one of the biggest stars right now, Pedro Pascal, they delayed his trailer for Mandalorian Grogu coming out, which I'm not going to talk about today because honestly, don't give a shit. It looks so bland. It's probably going to be a fine movie, but it's so bland looking. And he didn't even post the trailer when they did release it. He did not share it to his profile for the first day. He instead posted about the canceling of Jimmy Kimmel or the suspension or whatever, and was posting about other things instead, which I absolutely loved. So, you know, it's nice that even these huge stars like him, like someone that's one of the world's biggest superstars like him, can still have a backbone. And even Tatiana Maslany, who played She-Hulk and is very public about Palestine, I love her so much. She posted about it as well and was just relentless, telling people to cancel their Disney Plus memberships. And it was really cool to see this huge revolution. Today is going to be a very political episode, if you couldn't tell from the trailers of one battle after another, as well as the Jimmy Kimmel instance. But I'm happy it's kind of all worked out in the end a little bit. I mean, still a very scary situation that shouldn't have happened in the first place. I mean, there's no right to suspend him when, 3 days earlier a Fox News host was saying that homeless people should be put down. It's just it's insane. But again, we are living on the craziest timeline. But now Kimmel's back on the air. His Tuesday night show is the second most viewed episode he's ever had. I honestly wonder what his first most viewed episode ever was, but I'm happy it kind of all worked out. Let's move into our next story. Deadline are reporting that Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence will star in Marty Scorsese's next film, What Happens at Night for Apple. The thriller follows a married couple who travel to a small, snowy European town to adopt a baby, but nothing is quite as it seems. I think this is a great team up. I'm so excited for J-Law in a Scorsese film because she hasn't been yet. No, she hasn't. And I mean, Leonardo has, like Gangs of New York, but this is a great team up. I'm pumped for them to work together. I'm really excited. After one battle after another, I mean, we're gonna rave about it today. Spoiler alert, I loved it, but Leo is just on a really hot streak right now. I mean, we had Killers of the Flower Moon, which I think was a fantastic film, and I wish it was like way bigger because I think what it's doing was fantastic, although that was a very competitive year. But I'm very excited for this. It sounds like a fun premise. I don't know what it's based on, but it's cool that Scorsese is doing this project, and he has 3 or 4 projects on the go right now. Like, he has the Jesus movie. Yeah, no, I can't remember what the Jesus project is, but then he has this one going, and I think it just sounds really interesting. It's nice that Jennifer Lawrence is back and fully acting now, because she did have a small break because she had her first kid or her second kid, but she has Lynn Ramsey's Die My Love, which I think is still coming out this year, if I'm not mistaken, in November or October. I can't remember. And then Leo obviously has One Battle After Another. I'm not a huge fan of him as a person, but obviously he's one of the great actors of all time. I mean, J-Law is also up there. Really, she's making a name for herself. Of course, she's won Academy Awards. This sounds really cool, and Scorsese is not a young man, but he's still pumping out the projects. I like that he doesn't limit himself like Quentin Tarantino's stupid 10 film rule, which I think is just arbitrary. My only worry is Apple is distributing it, and I feel like Apple is not great when it comes to theatrical stuff. Most of their movies don't do great. I guess Formula One was also an Apple film, but at the same time, it did well, but I feel like they've had way more box office bombs, or films that haven't done great, rather, like Killers of the Flower Moon didn't do great, than they've had huge box office successes. Like, I'm not sure they've really had that film that is a box office success yet. So hopefully this can change the tides, because Scorsese deserves it. He's one of the GOATs. I hope he, keeps acting as well. He was great in The Studio season 1. I hope he shows up in season 2. That would honestly be fantastic, but that's a very good story. A couple of more things to talk about before we hop into our One Battle After Another review. Zach Krieger addressed the rumors of a Weapons prequel, which honestly I thought, it's just people like making stuff up, and it's probably just a fun thing of like, what if we do a Gladys series for fun? But he said he plans to direct the Weapons prequel about Aunt Gladys. Quote, "It's real, and I've been talking to Warner Brothers about it. There's a story, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's not bullshit." So he fully confirmed that Aunt Gladys movie is in the works. I think that's really fun, because one of my favorite things about Weapons was the Aunt Gladys reveal, and you're you're just like instantly, what is this lady's deal? And she's so fascinating. She's such a fascinating character, and how her magic works and how the mechanics of it all. I would love to understand that, and how she came to be the way she is. And I think honestly that's a really good prequel idea. We know how her life ends, but I'm so interested in how it all began and where it all came from. And I think Zach Krieger is a really interesting voice within the horror genre right now. I know he's doing the Resident Evil stuff, but I think Weapons was just such a dynamite movie. I loved it when I talked about it. It was really fun. I spoke to a friend recently who was like, oh, is Weapons worth the hype? And it had been 2 weeks since I watched it, and I was like, yeah, I still have very positive feelings. It wasn't like a fast food type horror movie where I'm like, oh, it's great in the moment, but I'm not going to think about it later. No, I thought about it in the moment, thought about it after. There's so many questions I have of like, what did the assault rifle above the house mean? And so many little things that I've thought about since it came out, and I think it's just a dynamite movie. Go check out Weapons if you haven't. But the final story I want to talk about today, James Gunn was talking about Batman this week. He was openly talking about DCU Batman and addressing it. He was just, addressing how people view the white eyes and the blue and gray suit. He said, when someone on the Ringer podcast asked him, Batman, where are we? What's up with casting? Have you started looking at people? He said, quote, I have guys I like. I have guys that are at the top of the list. One actor in particular, a pretty big star, wants to be Batman. We've talked about it, but I don't think that's the case. So, just reading into that, I think obviously there are actors other than Robert Pattinson who are out there, and sure, they could probably be a very good Batman. Jake Gyllenhaal could probably play Batman, but I'm not that excited by the prospect. I would kind of like someone a little younger. I mean, I'm still not a fan that we're going to do the 40-year-old Batman who already has Damian. I would love them to walk that back and do a younger one that's closer in age to Bruce. It's just a bit of a bummer to me that we're already going to move on to that part of his career, because I would love to let him grow in the DCU and embrace all the fantastical stuff that he can slowly build on throughout his movies. And I have fully accepted that it's not going to be Robert Pattinson now, since Matt Reeves gave his interview, James Gunn gave his interview. Like it's done. It's not going to happen unless something drastic happens and they decide like there's no other way around it, or Robert Pattinson says, I really want to do it, just let me do it with the other directors, I don't care. But I highly doubt that's going to happen, because it's Robert Pattinson. He has a billion good projects going on, so we'll see. As for his actual quote though, saying he has actors in mind and he spoke to one really big star, I think the one really big star is Alan Ritchson, who Richson, he is the star of Reacher, and he was Aquaman in Smallville. If you know. I think he's probably spoken to him about it, and Alan Ritchson even said himself, I've spoken to James Gunn about it, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think there are other characters that would suit him a lot better, to be honest. I think he's very low on my list. I might actually do a DCU Batman fan casting video maybe next month or the month after, or even the Batman Part 2 fan casting if we get any reveals, or I don't know. I might do just a Batman focused YouTube video next month, because I just want to do that. And I think Alan Ritchson is the guy that probably he spoke to James Gunn. I don't think it was Brendan Sklenar. I know he said he's a fan of 1923, but I don't think he's not the big star that he's talking about. I don't think Brendan Sklenar is a big star. It's just he's only getting attention because he keeps talking about Batman, versus Alan Ritchson is a pretty big star. Reacher is a huge Amazon show, and a lot of people know him from like Blue Mountain State or other stuff. I just don't think he's a great choice. So far, there haven't been any choices that have really blown me away. The only one where visually I'm like, I could see it is Nate Mann, I think is his name. He was in Masters of the Air. That's the only one where I'm like, he looks like Bruce Wayne. He's got a bit of suaveness to him, and I could see it. Like, he looks like a good New 52 Batman. But I think I'm going to leave the news there for today. So lots of course, like any other week, it's some major controversy of our lifetime that just happens to be going down in what feels like a crazy week every week. I mean, the Rapture didn't happen, so thank God, because I got to see one battle after another. However, maybe it did happen and I'm just a sinner that's left behind. But again, timestamps below. Before we get into one battle of another, there will be non-spoilers and then spoilers. You can always jump around and go to the What Else I Watched segment, because I watched a shit ton of movies this week, but I really want to talk about this, so let's talk about one battle after another. One Battle After Another is a 2025 comedy adventure coming in at 2 hours, 43 minutes. The film is directed, of course, by Paul Thomas Anderson, considered one of the great filmmakers of our time, written by Paul Thomas Anderson, but based on the book Vineland from 1990. The reviews are overwhelmingly positive, 8.6 on IMDb, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 89% audience score, 4.5 averaged on Letterboxd with a 5-star mode. That is absolutely bonkers. I don't know what the last movie was that had that high of a rating. It's probably going to dip a little bit after the weekend once the general public sort of sees it, but the budget was $145 million, could not care less, give him $1 billion to do what he wants. The synopsis for One Battle After Another. When their evil nemesis resurfaces after 16 years, a band of ex-revolutionaries reunite to rescue the daughter of one of their own. The film stars, on Letterboxd order, Leonardo DiCaprio as Bob Ferguson, Sean Penn as Colonel Stephen Lockjaw, Chase Infinity as Willa Ferguson, Benicio del Toro as Sensei Sergio, Regina Hall as Deandra, Tiana Taylor as Perfidia Beverly Hills, Alana Haim as Mae West, Wood Harris as Laredo, Tony Goldwyn as Virgil Throckmorton, Shayna McHale as Jungle Pussy, and a whole bunch of others like Kevin Teig as Roy Moore, Eric Schweig as Avanti, April Grace's sister Rochelle, and Jim Downey shows up as Sandy Irvine. It's a fantastic cast, but guys, One Battle After Another, here are my initial thoughts. Here we go. This movie blew me away. Like, oh my, I was speechless after. I was literally giggling, kicking my feet. I had such a nice chat with the guy who was seated a couple seats over from me after the film, and we were both just like shaking our heads and our jaws were on the floor. I had such high expectations for this film because of the buzz around it, and it easily met the bar. I am so happy. I'm so impressed, and PTA has made one of my favorite movies of the 2020s, no doubt. I don't know if it's one of my favorites of the 2000s, but it's definitely of the 2020s. It's in that top 5 conversation or top 10 at least, but I want to get to the performances because this cast, man, Leonardo DiCaprio as Ghetto Pat or Bob Ferguson. Leo is just one of the best of all time. It really goes without saying, obviously. His character, Pat or Bob, he's scared, he's funny, he's flawed, but he cares so much. I like that he is an indirect hero of the film despite how terrible he is at everything. Like, this performance is Cliff Booth levels of great, but it's operating in a whole other space, sort of, and there's a hilarious physicality at work here that adds onto the Cliff Booth type thing, and it works so well. He's a washed up revolutionary, he's a paranoid father, and I love what he's doing in this film. Then we have Sean Penn as Colonel Stephen Lockjaw. I'm not going in any specific order, I'm just going in the Letterboxd order of the cast. Sean Penn, there's your best supporting actor of the year. No doubt. I think he's locked in as the winner. He's sensational in this. He's hateful, he's slimy, he's captivating, and he is so damn good. Like, the physicality of his performance as well. He has a walk in this film that is hilarious. My theater was laughing every time he would walk, and Paul Thomas Anderson is just letting him walk with this hilarious little limp. And then we have also, there's the experienced actors like them and Regina Hall, but then we have, of course, the newcomer Chase Infinity as Willa Ferguson. And one of my favorite things while watching movies is discovering a star. When you're watching a film debut or a TV debut or whatever, and I think Chase Infinity is a freaking star because she is fucking sensational in this movie. Some people say, oh, they didn't give her a lot to do. I think she is doing so much in this film. I think she is fantastic. It's one of my favorite performances of the year. I mean, a lot of this cast is one of my favorite of the year, and Willa, her character is just confronting her family's past, and she is sort of at a crossroads with her own future and understanding the foundations around her aren't really what they seem. Like, she sees her paranoid father, but then this movie brings a lot of validation to all that paranoia, and she begins to understand it. It's so fascinating to see her deal with this all being real and a lot of it being fake at the same time, and it's so entertaining seeing her deal with it. Chase Infinity, believe the hype because everything that has been spoken about, she is just sensational. Then we have Benicio del Toro, another very experienced actor as Sensei Sergio, one of the best supporting cast members of the year. He's hilarious. He's so measured and calm, and all of this is just another day for him, kind of, and he's hilarious, and he plays off Bob / Leonardo DiCaprio so well, and I really like characters who are just good at what they do, and Sensei Sergio is just good at what he does. He is just so plan for everything, know what to do in every situation. This is going to happen. We knew this was going to happen. Bob, I need you to come with me, all this stuff. Like, I love watching people who are competent. As much fun as it is watching people who are bumbling goofs or idiots and bad at their jobs, it's fun to watch really competent people do what they do best, and that's what I got from Sensei Sergio, and same with Regina Hall as Deandra, who it's kind of remarkable because Regina Hall does so much with her performance despite having a fraction of the screen time in comparison to Leo or Benicio or Chase Infinity. She is really doing, a mile with an inch, and I loved it. She is such a fucking pro. Just blew me away on several occasions with such little subtle things that she's doing. And then we have, of course, last but not least, maybe the role I was most excited to talk about today, and I'll really dive into with spoilers, but Tiana Taylor as Perfidia Beverly Hills, sensational. She is just mind-blowing in this. I couldn't believe the power and confidence and boldness and in-your-face mentality we get from her in all of her scenes. Like, she never tones it down. She never really pulls it back, maybe only once, and I was just like floored by her, and she really immediately hooked me into the film. It was her that wins you over in the first 5 minutes along with the score, which we'll talk about. But look, it's an amazing ensemble. Like, there's so many greats in here, like Tony Goldwyn, Shayna McHale. Jim Downey is just so funny in this movie. I loved everyone, but as good as the cast is, the story is what really had me going within the first 5 minutes, because I really love the story that PTA is telling here. Like, yes, it's a big, loud, action-packed, revolutionary rescue film with what is a beating heart, and it's a family tale in the middle of it. It's a movie about parenthood and paranoia and internal and external battles. That is what the title, one battle after another. If it's not physically something on the outside, it's this internal turmoil that we're having to deal with. If it ain't one thing, it's another. And that's really, this movie lives up to the title, and I love it because this movie is just go, 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 one thing after another, and it's absolutely brilliant. Like, okay, we're going to talk a lot thematically today about stuff, but I just need to share my experience in the 1.431 IMAX compared to my Landmark Cinemas IMAX experience back home. The seats are way further away from the screen. Like, you can really get a lot more distance, but this is like the old school, like, Science Museum IMAX where the seats are so sloped and up close, and this felt like I was looking up the entire time, and I loved it. I loved how the screen is literally floor to ceiling. We're watching an entire wall in front of us, and I saw it at the Scotiabank Theatre in Toronto. I just thought it was honestly a religious experience, and not just visually how it looks on the screen with the screen size and the format that it's playing in, but the surround sound of the IMAX, complemented by Johnny Greenwood's absolutely sensational score. I got goosebumps not even 3 minutes into the movie. There's a track that starts the film called One Battle After Another, and I was already listening to the soundtrack this morning. It literally just has this whoa, like this long heavy note in the theme, and as soon as it started at the beginning of the film, I was like, oh shit, like, here we go. I'm excited. I have goosebumps. I already feel like I'm getting a little choked up, weirdly enough. Like, this feels strangely really emotional, even though it's a big revolutionary action set piece to start the film, and it really, really works. And there's a moment where someone opens a car door in the film that I won't say what happens, but they open the car door and it matches the piano that we get in the theme, the dun 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 dun, and I loved that the car door kept the tempo of the score going. And there's very little moments where the music actually lets up in this film. It very rarely will let the film just be silent and let us sit in the moment, which I loved. It reminded me a lot of Magnolia, and we are going to talk about other PTA films that I've seen towards the end of the non-spoiler section, but in Magnolia, one of my favorite things about that film is how the score really doesn't let up the whole time, and it makes such a long runtime of 2 hours 43 minutes, or 3 hours for Magnolia rather, feel like 90 minutes, and shrinks it down because the music is momentum and it keeps you flowing through every moment, and how it transforms throughout moment to moment. It's just genius scoring by Johnny Greenwood, and I mean, one of my favorite scores this year. But let's talk about the cinematography by Michael Bowman, who is just a master. This is his second PTA film after Licorice Pizza, which I thought was a gorgeous movie, but it really works in this action piece, big blockbuster type environment, and it gives everything such a dark, beautiful tone to it, as well as making all the desert scenes feel really empty and vast, and the lens choices are really great as well. I mean, I'm not a huge expert on lens choices, but I know they used like longer lenses, or what do you call it, where everything far away feels super magnified. So there's this chase sequence that I'll talk about later, but everything is super up close, and I fucking loved it. And it's shot on 35mm film using VistaVision, and I only know this from watching Patrick Tomaso's reels about this. Like, he just literally an hour ago put one out about One Battle After Another. But VistaVision, they shot the the Brutalist on VistaVision as well, right? And the way it works is normal film goes top to bottom, I guess, but VistaVision goes like left to right, flowing through the camera or running. So it's captured differently and allows you to have a wider gate or something like that. And so it's almost like a cube that you're watching instead of the widescreen rectangle. And I guess it's not using anamorphic lenses, and it's just all that technical stuff. I don't know, but if you're a simpleton like me and you don't understand that stuff, or you want to learn someday, watch Patrick Tommaso. He's a great film nerd that knows so much about cameras. But I will just say that watching this as someone who doesn't really understand lenses, I thought this was a beautifully captured film, and it never feels like it's reaching too far by going for the blockbuster stuff, because there are action sequences in here that like big blockbuster filmmakers would be proud of. Now let's hop into some more thematic stuff. Okay, I think I'm done with the technical things, but there's a really interesting thing in this film where a lot of PTA movies are sort of feel chapterish, or, you know, Magnolia is an anthology film that follows these different people in some way. But this film is really defined by the three black women that are Perfidia at the start, and then in the middle, it's a little more Deandra that we're following. And then the final act, of course, is Willa. And it's really interesting how we get these three different perspectives of power and revolution. And I love how Paul Thomas Anderson is focusing on these three different black women who are very different and are acting in very different ways within the revolutionary. You know, one of them is in your face, loves the thrill of the revolution, and maybe isn't ready to accept where they are in their life. And then we have another that I won't say by name because I feel like that's approaching spoilery, but then we have one that's very experienced when we flash forward 16 years later and has to really take control of a situation and win over trust to get the rest of the film going. And then we have another that, obviously it's Willa, but isn't used to all of this in the third act and is having to discover herself and is learning about her roots and where her family falls into this situation. And I really loved putting the point of view into these three characters. Of course, there's the point of view of Leo as Bob, and he's a huge part of this film, but a lot of this film is really given to the action and the thoughts of these three very powerful black women in their own ways, and the three different types of powers that you can have within revolutions, or even just like interpretations or personalities that you get within political movements, of people that are maybe just in it for the thrills, people that are experienced and trying to keep the dream alive or are trying to move on from it, and people that know nothing about it and are just learning and don't understand but are coming to terms with their family's involvement in this. And I really loved it. And I mean, PTA, you can compare Hard 8, which I just watched last week, and I'll talk about what else I watched, Magnolia, One Battle After Another, even Licorice Pizza a little bit, but PTA, he loves focusing on subjects, and by subjects I mean people that are very flawed. None of his, subjects are perfect people. I don't think he likes writing perfect people from the 4 films that I've watched by him, and I'll rank them eventually, but I like that. It feels, revolutionaries and these people that are doing these amazing, powerful things, that they are fucked up and they're kind of dumb and they make mistakes and they're flawed people just like us, and it humanizes the story in a way that really works. Just like Magnolia, which is a film dealing with, life and death and love and turmoil and grief and all of these huge, huge things that we go through in our lives, but it's humanized because the people that are experiencing these things are not perfect people and they are just like us, and we can really find ourselves in these films. And specifically One Battle After Another is very much confronting the current political situation that we have in the US. And yes, he is like commenting on the politics of the time, but he's commenting on very human experiences and emotions that happen to be in the background or even in the foreground of these very big historic moments that happen once in a lifetime. And as I was saying before, PTA is very focused on, regretful parents, or parents that have failed in their lives, and parents that are not perfect and flawed parents. And I love that he is dad of 4, I think he has 4 daughters himself. And this film feels very personal, like someone who can acknowledge that maybe they were part of a group of revolutionaries that thought they might change the world at some time and are somewhat confronting the failures of their generation. And that's what a lot of this film is about. This is a movie that is talking about sort of how parenting can change your life and your attitude. You can be a rebel as a youngster, or you can be radical, you can be out there, you can have loud thoughts, but sort of bringing life into this world can calm that all down, and it shifts all of your attitude to paranoia because you have someone other than yourself that you're taking care of now. And I really love the the commentary on that in this film, how Bob, our main character, I guess you could say Bob is the main character of this film, really, along with his daughter Willa. But of course, he is this radical revolutionary in the French 75 when he's younger. But when he has Willa, he is ready to hang up his cape and he is ready to accept this new life. And then when we go 16 years forward, he is paranoid stoner that is ready to hang up his boots fully, and he wants to move on and just forget about his past life. And it's really fascinating to see how people move from that space of being a rebel to their new life of being someone that needs to be responsible, and how some people deal with it better than others, really. And this movie, like I've said, how hilarious Leo is in it. This is a movie that tonally is so well thought out and so well paced. It is, hilarious, but it's honestly terrifying. Like, this is a movie that is extremely nerve-wracking and made me anxious from the first minute. And I love movies like that put you on the edge of your seat. Like If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. That was another movie that was very Uncut Gems vibes to me, where it's start to finish, you're scared for your life, but it's also hilarious. Like, we have some of the most tense sequences of the year in one battle after another. Like, we're almost in the middle of an ice raid, or what feels like one, and then we'll have a 15-minute hilarious stretch with Bob Ferguson navigating these spaces as the most clumsy and forgetful and flawed revolutionary. But the jokes, which I don't want to share with you because I don't like just reciting jokes that I loved, but they're nonstop. And there's one where someone has to charge a phone and it just keeps going, and it had my theater in tears. People were clapping and laughing. It was really, really fantastic. And it's just walking out of the film, you feel like you got everything you wanted, or everything that you could have wanted in a film possibly. Amazing jokes and hilarious humor, but also such deep and sensitive and poignant, extremely relevant subject matters that people are kind of dying for right now. And people are really looking for filmmakers to take the world by the horns and talk about these things, because it feels like so many people are scared to address these things, or people handle it in a way that is very clumsy and misguided. But it feels like PTA is really doing a great job with his commentary in this film, and how he's balancing those tones of giving us, the cycles of tyranny. And I mean, what does this film have to say about the cycles of violence and the cycles of tyranny and revolutions or rebellions and even hippies, I guess you could say? But it's sort of saying that every generation in the past has failed in some way at their own revolutions, or revolutions don't look like what we think they are. And it's really interesting. I mean, not every generation has failed, obviously, at their revolutions, but it's really interesting to see a failed generation almost that did not win this battle, I guess you could say, and how they cope with that in the aftermath. And okay, a couple more funny things, or just things I really loved about this film. No one ever closes their car door in this film. It's like GTA, where your character gets in and leaves the car door open, then you drive away and it slams shut. Every single, and this is such a random thing to pick up on, but I noticed other people talking about it too, and I was like, okay, I'm glad I'm not crazy. But every time someone gets in a car in this film, they almost never close their door when they're in a rush, and then they drive away and the door slams shut. And it was just hilarious every single time. Also, we've talked a lot on this podcast in the past about needle drops, and how I think the art of the needle drop is very much dying out right now. There's a lot of people that don't know how to do needle drops in their movies, and they just use popular TikTok songs. But honestly, this movie has some great needle drops. It uses Mo Bamba, a song that haunted me in my first year because it played at every party, and it uses it in such a funny way that I was like, oh my god, like, I can't believe this is playing in the background. But also great use of Steely Dan, great needle drops, honestly, great music choices in this. The score is so effective, but it feels equally complemented by the jukebox songs that it's choosing. And there's also a car chase in this film that is very much part of the posters and all of the trailers, and it's a 3-car chase sequence, and it's thrilling to watch. And the way PTA captures it, like I said, is it's almost like flowing over these hills, like it's shown in the trailer, and he's using these long lenses that zoom into the road and the things far ahead. Or we're very rarely cutting to inside the car. It's very much focused on doing a POV from the hood, and it adds such a flowy, river or ocean, like waves type feeling, and I loved it. A couple more thematic things I just want to talk about. It's just PTA in every film that I've watched from him, there's something with the power and dynamics of sex that he's very interested in, and this film is taking on something different with racial fetishization or racial fetishes and the dynamics of the powers of sex with like the racial enemy or whatever you want to say. And I'll talk maybe more in spoilers in depth, and it gives you something to chew on when you're walking out, because there's a lot that's being said about that, but that's a very strong theme here. And also, this is very much a movie about belonging. Like, it doesn't matter who in the film you look at. This is a movie about finding and joining and maintaining community, and I think maintaining community community is the biggest thing here, that people are wanting to hold on to the groups that they are a part of, and they're scared of letting things slip. In these very, very big and lampoonish and kind of goofy movies, or sort of in-your-face movies, you can still have such human little things that they're tugging at, and that's what every great film should be. You know, just because it's a huge Marvel movie or a big DC or comic book movie doesn't mean you have to forget about the human elements as well. And that's what the biggest thing I love about this movie is, how huge it is, that it's still very much about this loneliness or this kind of heart of people. But okay, I think we should rank the 4 Paul Thomas Anderson films that I've seen. So I have seen One Battle After Another, Licorice Pizza, Magnolia, and Heart 8. So in 4th place, a film I watched last week is Heart 8. That is Paul Thomas Anderson's debut. It's a really solid directorial debut, but it does feel like a little inexperienced at times. Still very good. Then in 3rd, I'm going Licorice Pizza, a movie I really, really liked when I first watched it, but I haven't really thought about it a lot since, and there was nothing that truly... actually, some stuff stuck with me after, but still, good performances. It's solid. It's not PTA's best that I've seen. In 2nd place, I am going to go One Battle After Another. I think it is, like I said, one of the best movies of the 2020s, but in 1st, I just have to go with Magnolia for a 3-hour film that doesn't have these huge daring sequences or whatever. It is just so entertaining and exciting and deep, and just does not let up the entire time. A lot like One Battle After Another, but not in a blockbuster sense. But those are the 4 PTA movies I've seen ranked. Now let's do 2 stars and a wish, which we haven't done in a while. But star number 1, I think this is a movie that will entertain you from the word go until the credits rolling. There is very rarely a moment where you're given time to breathe, and those scenes are also very captivating, the ones where it does quiet down. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes, like I said, but it honestly felt like 9 minutes. Star number 2, the performances are just some of my favorite of the year. Outstanding. No doubt we'll be hearing about this at the Oscars a lot. My wish at first was, I wish maybe we could have got some more Bob and Willa stuff, but I think everything we actually got between them was perfect. So I have no notes for One Battle After Another. I think it is just genuinely so solid. Overall, this is my film of the year. It is now my first on my Letterboxd rank where I have 91 movies. It passes If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. It's political, it's radical, it's hilarious. It's so broken and sensitive, and I absolutely adored it. It's the very first, the one and only so far of 2025, 5 stars out of 5. I loved it. One Battle After Another is a banger. Please go and watch it, but let's jump into spoilers. Okay, spoilers for One Battle After Another. You have been warned, but one thing I did not see coming, because it's not really shown in the trailers, I don't think, is the Christmas Adventurers Club. It's this powerful secret society of white supremacists that operate within the government and army. A really interesting inclusion that kind of shows the banality of evil, that at the end of the day, like, the people that are pulling the strings and enforcing immigration and all of these like crazy deportation methods is just like a group of rich white guys in a room somewhere in someone's basement or whatever. And it was just a really fascinating inclusion that was not only hilarious every time they were on screen. They had some of the funniest scenes, like the what's it called, the semen demon line at the end from Jim Downey had my theater in stitches. But they're the most boring, average looking guys. Like, our villain in the film is wearing a red Lacoste t-shirt, or one of our villains, and in a car chase. I just thought it was so fascinating the way PTA employs this group to operate in the shadows, and how, again, they are a community that Lockjaw just wants to join and be a part of. And this is, again, him feeling like an outcast when he's not in this group of powerful people. And it's a fascinating inclusion. I don't have much to say about them, but it just shows that even in the end, they would kill Lockjaw, who I did not expect him to survive and then get killed by his own, but that just shows how even these awful groups will eat their own. But Sean Penn's character in general, while we're on him, he is obsessed with black women, and he is a racist. He is part of this group that is white supremacists, and yet he has a mixed race child and is, involved with a black woman. And it's just interesting to compare that with Bob talking about all the presidents who were slave owners, and some of them even had children with black women. So you had these presidents that were sometimes, enforcing racial segregation and slavery, and yet they had affairs with black women and had power over black women and still fetishized them in a really strange way. And I just thought that was a cool connecting moment from PTA. And I mean, I I'm not sure. I was trying to figure out in my head, is Willa's father a mystery in this film? Is it meant to be a question of who is Willa's father? Is it Bob or is it Lockjaw? To me, it was always Lockjaw. I've thought from the first time that there was an encounter between Perfidia and Lockjaw, and then it shows Perfidia pregnant after. I immediately was like, okay, so Lockjaw is the father of Willa and Bob doesn't know. So I'm not sure what PTA intended with that, whether he wants it to be a mystery to just the characters or he wants it to be a mystery to us. I think either way it really works, because there is this question of, real fatherhood and what does it feel like to be a father, and the two spectrums of fatherhood, where you have one dad that is the biological father but is ashamed of it and does not want to be this person's father because of who they are, and then you have another father figure that is, may not be the legitimate father, but he is very much in love with his daughter. He thinks she's the best thing. He wants to care for her, and he steps up and he actually has more responsibility when she's born. And I just really loved what this film had to say about fatherhood. And I mean, Willa never tells Bob that she is not his actual daughter, and I kind of like that's just a secret. And weirdly, it made me think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, like, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. That's very much sort of, it could be a tagline of this film, is that, he's not your dad, but I was there for you the whole time and I loved you from when you were a child. And it's really beautiful, and I loved that a lot. But I want to talk about Perfidia because I'm so curious, and it was one of the things, as soon as I got out of the theater, I was like, I'm so excited to talk about her, because Tiana Taylor as Perfidia is an amazing performance. And what's PTA trying to say with her? I think there's a lot of really interesting nuances to her character that you can dissect. I mean, she's a revolutionary who, when she is pregnant, she's not ready to call it quits when the baby arrives. Like, there's that moment where they're sitting around the campfire and she's drunk while she's pregnant, and Bob and Deandra look at each other and say, like, it's like she doesn't even realize she's pregnant. Like, when this baby comes, we're fucked pretty much. She has the baby and she runs away to stay with the French 75, and she doesn't want to give up that dream and the chase and the thrill of revolution. It's like, she thinks Bob is trying to contain her and strip away her power with motherhood, and she sees motherhood as this loss of power, and revolution is the only way to keep that power. But I do wonder her motivations and her love for being a revolutionary in the French 75. Is she in it for the thrills? Is she in it for the end goal? And if they ever got their dreams of them being in power, would she still want that and still want the thrill of being in that chase? And is that why she got involved with Lockjaw in the first place? Obviously, she wanted to maintain the rebellion and keep it free, and she's not with him purely out of love, but at the same time, there is that dynamic that they had, that sort of weird spark that's hard to define. Is she with him because he is the enemy and she loves being in the face of the enemy and being put in power against the enemy? It's just a really interesting dynamic that I think is really well written, and I was fascinated to pick apart after. But I mean, she escapes, and when she was younger, she wasn't ready to be a mother, but once reality hits, she does all of this for the sake of her child, and she runs away from Lockjaw and runs to Mexico. And I love the note she left that said, "This pussy don't pop for you." I thought that was hilarious, and Lockjaw's face was amazing. Perfidia is one of my favorite characters of the year and one of my favorite written characters. It's just, her own mother also calls her a runner and says she comes from a line of revolutionaries, and Bob is not fit to be her husband or the father of her child. And by the end of that sort of interaction, because Perfidia is gone in the first half hour of this film, you see how close Bob is with her family and how much they love him. But one of my favorite sequences of the year, and one of the many amazing sequences in this film that feels like a huge, almost seamless scene that doesn't really stop, is Bob escaping from his house when Willa and Deandra are also running away from her school dance, and Bob gets arrested. It's like this long sequence where he's constantly trying to charge his phone, he's trying to get in touch with Willa, he's trying to get the transponder thing that he has, the Motorola locator thing, to work. And I just love the tempo of that scene, how obviously the music keeps going and we keep getting everyone on the move and people making decisions and asking questions, and then you get the call where he has to do the, what time is it? And that was one of the most like thrilling sequences for me, where it's like, oh, Bob on the chase and Willa on the run, and then she's hunted down and she's captured. And it's just, I love how probably after the first 45 minutes, this movie is one long chase sequence in some ways, or one long rescue that never lets up. And it's just, it's amazing how this movie, again, is so long, but it's 90 minutes in spirit, I would say. And like macro revolution in this macro action or tyranny, while there's also little micro revolutions or revolts. Like there's an indigenous man in this that works with Lockjaw, who decides once he has to take Willa in to be killed, he revolts and he kills the men that he is answering to because they don't respect him and they call him slurs, and it's just really interesting how PTA is doing the macro evolutions or macro revolutions as well as the micro revolutions, and there's just so much political movement in this film. And I've already spoken about the 3 car chase at the end, but what I will say about it is that I love how it's shot, obviously, but I love that PTA is not afraid to switch the perspective between the 3 drivers that are in this scene, that there is Willa, there's Lockjaw, and there's Bob, but then there's also this Smith guy from the Christmas Adventurers Club, and once he's revealed and kills Lockjaw, I love how we are flipping between the 3 cars and we're getting all 3 perspectives, and it's just adding so much tension because we're so aware of the space that they're in and how far they are from each other. It's just so well directed. But the third act in general, let's just talk about the ending here because it's one of my favorite endings to a film. I mean, when the indigenous guy asks Willa, is someone coming for you, when he takes her, and she says like, yeah, someone's coming for me, and it's like Bob, I love that he doesn't have to be the hero of this film, and he's not the one that actually rescues Willa. She does it on her own, but he shows up anyway, and she loves that, and there's just so much emotional tension and sort of resolution at the end between them because it's her coming to terms with like, oh, my lazy dad, who I think is paranoid and I look down on, honestly, is actually this huge hero, or he was in his own day, and now I feel like I am his child and my mother's child because of what I've just had to do in the last day. And it's just such a crazy loop that we're going for. And, you know, I love when they first meet each other after she's finally free and she still makes him say the code, and he says, you know, the time's irrelevant or whatever, but look at my face, it's me. And it's just, that was the moment of the film where I really got choked up, that she is so scared and the adrenaline you can just see in her face is rushing. She's terrified of what she's just been through, and that just that father-daughter embrace was so, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it right now, but just so beautiful. And to think it couldn't get any better. I loved, obviously there's a very funny interaction after where Lockjaw is actually killed by the Christmas Adventurers Club, but the letter at the end from Perfidia, I was wondering how is PTA going to wrap up kind of this storyline. And I love also the respect that Bob gives that letter, because he could very easily just kind of rip it up and throw it away of like, oh, well, your mom bailed, I don't have any respect for her. But he can see her. He can see that Perfidia cannot be really controlled, and she is very much like a wild spirit. He understands her, and I think he still very much loves her. And he gives that letter to their daughter to understand, and she says like, maybe one day we can meet, and I would love to meet you, and I still love you, and I hope you understand while I did all this. And then it's just such a fascinating roller coaster of an ending, from this huge bombastic blockbuster chase type thing to a really gorgeous and simple letter saying, I love you, I hope you know I think of you all the time, and I think of you every day, and I hope you understand why I did what I did, to literally, I don't know, I think it's very hard to make iPhones look cool in films, and yet at the end we have Willa and Bob, who finally has a real cell phone because they're not allowed cell phones, and she has one behind his back obviously, but them just like playing with the camera and him trying to take selfies with the flash on. It's such a strange thing to get such a relatable parent and child dynamic where you're trying to teach them the technology of something, and then Willa goes and she joins the new rebels, and she is part of the new revolutionaries, and she's the new face of the new generation, I guess you could say. And Bob's just at home, finally at peace, and it was just such a perfect sort of bookend for me that gave me everything I wanted. It's that Lockjaw is dead, the evil is gone, you know, the witch is dead or whatever, but then also Bob gets his little life that he wanted before, but the paranoia didn't let him have, where he was scared of what's going to happen. And Willa gets what she wants. She understands sort of the world around her, and she's experienced something terrible, but she can push on from it and learn from it. And it's just such a well written ending that doesn't feel like it's ever overstaying its welcome either. So I think there is a lot that has to be said in this film about identity and learning from our parents' identities and understanding the roots that they come from and why they are the way they are, and how sometimes we just turn into our parents. And there's one line that I really loved in this film from one of the nuns or the sisters that grow weed that are hilarious, and she says to Willa, you don't look like your mom on the outside, but inside you do. And she's very much her mother in a lot of ways, even if she isn't, you know, irresponsible and running away, or not irresponsible, because I think Perfidia, a lot of what she does is very valid, but the way she runs away obviously is very interesting, and her daughter is the same on the inside, that she is from this line of revolutionaries that's really beautiful. But anyways, I think that's all I have for the more detailed and spoiler stuff. One battle after another, easily the best film of the year for me. This is what I've been waiting for, a movie that's really just going to grab me by the throat and just take me for a crazy adventure that's going to be in my face, and it's 5 stars for me. I'm so excited to see it again. Let's get into what else I watched. Alrighty, well, last week and what else I watched 9 movies, 4 TV shows, and I read a couple of books, or 1.5 books, starting with Shadowland Moon Knight, a very fun Moon Knight Daredevil crossover story that I finally finished. It was a lot of fun. I'm not huge on like Moon Knight lore, so it's been good to dive in and kind of understand the character a little bit more. I would totally recommend it. Then last night, I started reading Zatanna, the Mistress of Magic. Really fun. I'm like a quarter of the way through, and it's got some very gore magic that's pretty violent. I'm excited to make a video about it this weekend, but let's move into TV. We're going to start with Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 5 and Episode 6. So last week, it was sort of the build up to, and I guess spoilers for Peacemaker, of course, which we'll do an episode on eventually, the full season, but last week was very much a getting ready to go into the other dimension, and Chris, he goes on the run and he says goodbye, and I just thought last week was a really, really, really solid episode, and I enjoyed it a lot. I also like that Eagly sort of had his own character arc, having to deal with what's his name, Michael Rooker as the Eagle Hunter or whatever the hell that guy was. Then we have episode 6, which aired just last night, and holy shit, I cannot believe we are actually on Earth X, which, if you don't know, is where the Nazis won and the US are, white supremacists, and I knew it was coming for like 5 episodes. I think they did the reveal of that so well. It's so obvious in the background, but titling the episode Ignorance is Chris, that he doesn't notice these things, is perfect, because he's just walking around like, oh, this is a great universe, everyone loves me, and it's like, yeah, buddy, I wonder why. A great episode. I'm very excited for where it's gonna go from here. Then I watched Platonic Season 2 Episode 8, which is just so fun and solid. It's kind of my comfort show every week. But Gen V started last week, so I watched episodes 1 to 3. I wasn't like that hyped for it. I liked Season 1 a lot. Like, I thought it was a very fun show that's just a simple spin-off of The Boys, but Season 2 has actually started very well, and I've liked it a lot, and it's been a hoot to watch, so I'm excited to keep on watching on. It's a good mystery that they're trying to solve, and I would recommend it. But the final thing that started this week was Survivor Season 49, Episode 1. It was a 2-hour premiere. It was pretty solid, I would say. There was one guy on it that I did not like, named Jake from Alberta, who is like a correctionals facility officer. He was a former dancer, and I just don't like him at all. He's just so lovey-dovey with everyone, like, yeah, we got a bromance going, dude. I'm the shoe bandit, and he just thinks he's hilarious, and he would drive me nuts on the island. But there are a lot of people I actually like on this season. I like Savannah is my winner pick, and I like Nate, who is also a Marvel producer. He's literally a huge producer in real life, but I like his dynamic with his tribe, and he's a really interesting character. I hope it doesn't feel like a filler season because everyone's just waiting for 50, but we'll see what happens. Let's jump into the 9 movies that I watched last week, starting with Freakier Friday. I really liked the first one. Like, it's a fun classic Disney film that everyone watched growing up, and I was a little worried, like, oh boy, is the sequel gonna, I don't know, just suck? But my screening was hilarious because there was this father or grandfather, I don't know, beside us who had like their 5-year-old girl with them, and he fell asleep and he was snoring so loud that everyone in the theater could like hear it almost over the movie, but he was dreaming, and the way he was dreaming, he sounded like my dog when she dreams, like that, and we were all like, what the fuck is going on? Kind of crazy. And then he kept falling asleep, and the daughter would have to wake him up, and it was just, it was wild. As for the movie, I don't know, it was fine. There were a couple of funny moments. I mean, it was just mostly Vanessa Bayer that was making me laugh. But then I watched my very first screener that I've ever got, called Looking Through Water, which is a Michael Douglas film by Roberto Snyder, and genuinely it was just a very bland, boring movie. It feels like a Hallmark film. It's not actually, but I just wasn't a fan at all. Every scene has melodramatic, huge emotional tensions. It feels like a Riverdale episode or some kind of Netflix original. Freakier Friday, I gave 2.5 stars, and then Looking Through Water, I gave 2 stars. Next up, we have Hard 8 by Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, I spoke about it a little bit in the non-spoiler section, but I'm gonna work my way through his entire filmography now. So tonight, I might watch Boogie Nights or tomorrow night, and then I'll just keep going because honestly, I've loved every film that I've watched from him, including Hard 8. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's not like an amazing mind-blowing film, but for a directorial debut, it's so good. And I mean, what a cast for his first movie, really. Like John C. Reilly, Philip Baker Hall, Gwyneth Paltrow, Samuel L. Jackson, Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's just honestly such a fun start, and there's so much of his DNA already in his first film, but it's a nice little 102-minute Paul Thomas Anderson film that I gave 3.5 stars. Then I watched Swiped, which is a 2025 film about the starting of Bumble, after Tinder, and it's just very, I don't know, very manufactured. It's kind of one note in that it's, yes, terrible things happened, but it's telling everything in a very unnuanced way, just very A to B polished. And the contact lenses were so distracting on Lily James and Dan Stevens. I don't know, it was fine. We watched it on a Sunday night, and it's a very formulaic, by the book, incredibly cheesy film. I'm never going to think about it again. 2.5 stars. But here we go, going into a bunch of 2025 films that I watched other than Swiped. The Long Walk. I really enjoyed it. It was just such a solid movie where from start to finish I was super entertained. And I mean, if I wasn't sold on Cooper Hoffman before, which I wasn't, I definitely am now, because him and David Johnson are absolutely breathtaking in this film. Their chemistry, they've already announced that they're going to be working on another film together, but they are magnetic in this. They are best friends. I am so interested in reading the book now, even though I know what happens, but still, The Long Walk, Francis Lawrence kind of knocked it out of the park, and it's so restricted in scope compared to Hunger Games, which he's done all of the Hunger Games film except the first one. Actually, I didn't know that he didn't do the first one, but it's literally them walking for almost 2 hours, but it feels so grand and vast, but it's them walking. It's so simple. I like that it doesn't do a bunch of flashbacks. It also utilizes not just the fear of being killed if you get your 3 strikes, but just like, if for me, what was scary in the movie is not just them being killed, but the gun being pointed, and the threat of it is just as terrifying, and it works so well in the film, the way it's building up. There's just one sequence on a hill when they're walking that I thought was just honestly magical. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Really good. A great Stephen King adaptation. We've had 3 this year already, and I like that 2 of them weren't horror films. And on Tuesday, which I made a vlog of that you will see by now, I saw Caught Stealing as my first showing of the day. It is the Darren Aronofsky 2025 film starring Austin Butler, Zoe Kravitz, and I really liked it. I think it was fun. It sort of felt a little bit rushed in parts, where we're moving from big event to big event, but there's still a lot of really good stuff in it. And honestly, Austin Butler, he's a star. He's such a good actor. It's unbelievable. I feel like he's really moved on from the Elvis persona and that sort of weird era he was in, where he was stuck in Elvis, but now I feel like he's really moving out of that and doing fun stuff. And as depressing and sort of dark as this movie is in times, it's sexy, it's goofy, it's funny, and it can be pretty thrilling. I just think it was a really solid watch. It didn't blow me away, but again, it was another fun, thrilling movie like The Long Walk that I was like, oh, this is just a solidly rewatchable film, I think, and I gave it 3.5 stars as well. But I followed it up, and part of me, it was actually my second screening of the day, because first I watched Splitsville, which is a comedy starring Dakota Johnson, Adria Arjona, Kyle Marvin, Michelangelo Covino, and it was pretty fun. It was very funny. I think the first 2/3 of the movie work really well, and there's so much golden comedy there, and then the third act gets a little bit muddled because it is about open relationships, and it's trying to have a lot of commentary on that, but it feels a little bit confused in the end of how it's trying to explain things and the nuance of these things, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It also shows the complications of those type of involvements really well, I guess. 3.5 stars. The final 2 films I saw, starting with Him. It's the football Jordan Peele movie that everyone thinks is a Jordan Peele movie, but it's not. It's actually a Justin Tipping movie. Jordan Peele was just a producer on it, and I thought the movie was him making a deal with the devil, but it was not that at all, and this movie was a dud. I actually really didn't like it. It was very boring. I don't say that very often, but it was a boring movie. It never even came close to being interesting for me. There's some really neat visuals, but that's about it. The story, I was just never interested. I never really bought into it, and it just never took its themes seriously. It felt like it's just drifting through a lot of different themes without really planting its feet, and I think it's it's definitely a weaker horror film of the year. And like I said in my Thursday review, occasionally when you get horror films that aren't maybe the best written, at least the performances can sort of pull you out of the boringness of it or the boredom of it, but that didn't happen here. I thought the performances were really terrible as well. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, but I finished my 4 movie day with A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey starring Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell. Maybe the most miscast movie that I've seen in a while, because holy shit, the chemistry was terrible in this cast. I did not see their love or any sparks. I've never seen such a manufactured chemistry like this. It felt so unnatural, and so, I don't know. I saw a really funny review. I think it was from the Big Picture pod, where they said Margot Robbie is dressed like Blake Lively's character in It Ends With Us, and it's such a dud. Cheesy, and they're 2 of the most boring human beings in this film. Like, their problems are like, okay, it's sad, but they're told in the most boring ways. And Colin Farrell's issues in the film are non-existent. It was just such a dud. I just could not care the entire time. It very rarely got interesting for me, and it felt so long despite only being, I don't know, 109 minutes. It was like an hour and 50 minutes long, but it was just such a dud. 2 out of 5 stars. So I saw 9 movies this week, 4 TV shows, 2 books. I'm officially at 218 films watched this year, not including double viewings. So with double viewings, I'm at 229. Maybe I'll try and get to like 250 or 290 or 300 by the end of the year. I don't know, but that has been what else I watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for a very fun episode 87, talking about One Battle After Another, my new favorite film of the year. As always, please rate and review the show 5 stars wherever you get your great podcasts like Watcher of All Things, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Acast. We are, of course, an Acast-produced show. You can even leave a comment right underneath the show on Spotify on the episode that you're listening to. What do you think of One Battle After Another? If you're on the YouTube channel, please hit like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell. Again, let me know down below, what do you think of One Battle After Another? What do you think of the Batman news in the DCU? And check out the new YouTube video that is literally going to drop the day after this comes out, walking you through my physical media and comics collection. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, and find me on social media. Instagram and Threads are at watcherofallthings, and the TikTok account is at watcher.of.all.things. You can also follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. Follow me on there, drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show, and I will follow you right back. Let's build a little community. Next week, it's another big movie. We have Benny Safdie's The Smashing Machine. It's getting a lot of award buzz. Is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson going to do it? Is he going to get an Oscar nomination? I don't know. I'm very excited to see it. Either way, I'm going to see it on Thursday night, but that will do it for this week. We have a lot of good movies still to come this year, but I'm very happy with One Battle After Another. But as for now, thank you all so much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.